Okay, hello. All right, looks like we're officially recording. Welcome. Hello and welcome to the very first ever recording of the Truth Files. Dun, dun, dun. I decided to hop on and record this. No script, no nothing. Completely. I'm sweaty and hair smooshed. I'm freshly back from the gym. I finally found a gym where I am. I have lots to catch you up on to even explain how I got to this point of being in this room and sweaty and completely unpolished. And that's really the goal and the intention of this is um, to to be unpolished and to be completely raw and real and authentic about this process and everything that's happening and going on. In fact, we can see piles of laundry, my shoes at the front door to this little place. It's not going to be a cleaned up and perfect setting. And I am broadcasting from Costa Rica, specifically, where am I? I am in, oh my goodness, Playa Portrero. That's where I am now. The date is Thursday, July 17th. I arrived in Costa Rica on Saturday. No, I left on Saturday. I arrived on Sunday. I left on Saturday evening, arrived Sunday, July 13th, and stayed at a hotel for a couple of days until I could figure out a longer term stay. And then that's where I am now at a very cute little casa, casa Costanita, probably butchering the pronunciations. And it's at a very cute little beach called Playa Portrero. So that's where I am. And how I got here is, the story. How I got here and what I'm doing here is the story. So we're in July, middle of July, and almost 3 months ago exactly to the day, it'd be the 18th. April, so it'd be April to May to June to July. Yeah, July, almost 3 months exactly to the day. My husband and I separated officially, and we had been married, have been married for, I guess this would be 23 years, together for 28. And we've got two kids together. We've got a son who is 25. He's going to be 26 next month, and he stayed back in Saskatchewan, where we are originally from. He lives with his fiance. So they just got engaged last month. No, May. Yeah, May. So just about 2 months ago, they just got engaged. They came out to visit us on Vancouver Island, where we were living, and they got engaged at that time, and they're currently living back home in Saskatchewan. And we have a 19-year-old daughter who's going to be 20 next week. And she currently lives on Vancouver Island. She's staying the summer with her auntie because the community that we were living in, Parksville, she wasn't very eager to live in. And so she's staying with her auntie and working and saving money and volunteering so that she can, bolster her resume for when she applies to veterinary college in a few years. So she has just completed her first year at UBC in applied animal biology, and she did really, really well. So we're super proud of her. Super proud of our son as well, because he just convocated from his business diploma program back in Saskatchewan, and he's gotten himself a sales job so that he can understand sales and relationship building. So he's selling cars at one of the largest dealerships in that community. He's doing really good too. He's quite a social media buff, and who knew? Who knew that that was going to be a thing for him, but he's doing really good. So that's a little bit of context. That's my family. And I work online. I mean, the kind of the category that you could lump me in, but you can never really encapsulate somebody in a few quick words. But the closest thing that you could categorize me into would be a business consultant. So I work with entrepreneurs and helping them align to their dharma and to create businesses that are fully in alignment with who they are and what they came here to do, their soul's purpose, and to do that very profitably and in a very fulfilling way. And so some of my primary tools that I use for that are human design and gene keys, as well as numerology. And so I interpret individuals' charts and profiles and help them essentially build businesses and operate in total alignment with their divine design. And so that's the work that I've been doing for several years. So once upon a time, I was in the fitness industry for a very, very long time, and I had a very successful bricks and mortar business. And I closed that down in 2019 as some of these new things were coming online and for me. And that's not really the point of all of this. That's just a little bit of backstory, but why, I'm working online because a big part of what I wanted is to be able to have the freedom to travel and work wherever I wanted to. And so I've spent the last few years building a tidy little online business and built entirely from my design as well. So that's what I've been doing. And so I've got the time and location freedom to be doing whatever I want to do whenever I want to do it, which is pretty great. So that's my story and my background. And a few years ago, my husband and I and our daughter, our youngest, so our son stayed back in Saskatchewan. We all moved to Vancouver Island 3 years ago, landed on the island 3 years ago today, to this day. So it's kind of interesting that this is the day that I am choosing to record this. So 3 years ago exactly, we landed on Vancouver Island, and that's when our daughter finished grade 12 in high school in a completely new province. She had to catch up on a whole bunch of coursework, all kinds of things. Again, that's not the point of this. But we were there so that she could complete her high school, and then she had a gap year. And then last year she went to university. And so my husband and I had always been planning to take off and to travel once the kiddos were launched. And, to our great surprise, it's me that has taken off and traveled. And life has, taken on some interesting twists and turns to get us to this point. But I would say, the biggest thing too is that when you are really in service to your dharma and to being the fullest expression of who you are, because ultimately that is what our dharma is. Your dharma, your purpose is you. So the more fully expressed you are, the more authentic you are, that's what attracts all manner of abundance and wealth to you. And so if that was like, it's very simple. It's very simple. It's a very simple concept. But if it were easy, everybody would be doing it. So it's not easy because in order to align with greater and greater versions of ourselves, and I'm catching that fan in there, which I don't love. It's got an autofocus on this camera. In order to align with these greater and greater versions of ourselves, we have to let go of past versions of ourselves, past identities, past patterns and habits and belief systems and all of that kind of thing. And so there is a continuous death and rebirth cycle that all humans have the capacity to go through. This is the process of self-actualization, but entrepreneurs in particular have chosen a path like this because entrepreneurship really is one of the fastest paths to self-actualization. And so when we are on this path, and we're expanding and we're evolving and we're becoming greater and greater versions of ourselves, we have to let go of, as I said, past identities, past patterns, past belief systems, in order to be able to access greater and greater things, higher and higher potential. And sometimes what that means is that the relationships that we have can't always come along, can't always match where we're at. it doesn't always happen that way. There are lots of times when you expand and grow and relationships expand and grow along with you, and then sometimes they don't. And really, the people who are most successful on this path are willing to let anything go in service, in devotion to their dharmic path and whatever that might look like. And dharma doesn't just mean your work in the world. Dharma is the fullest expression of who you are in all ways. And so that can sometimes lead to some really hard conversations and hard decisions. And that is essentially where I ended up, where I landed, is that I made a decision in April that I'm trying to find the most diplomatic way to say it, but just that that my marriage was not serving the highest good of what I could see was possible for me and for us, truthfully. And so that was extremely challenging to move through that. But I do want to say that my husband, because we're not officially divorced, we are separated, but it has also led to like some really tremendous and rapid growth and really important conversations. And so, I want to be transparent about that too, is that these kinds of things, when you go through them, they're not simple, they're not black and white, they're not cut and dry. There's, two humans that are growing and healing at always different levels and layers of healing as we move along. And so that's been a part of it too. And so I received the guidance that you know, that I wanted to travel, and there was really no better time. It's sort of like the runway cleared, and I ran out of excuses in a way, because when we moved from Saskatchewan to Vancouver Island, we had to sell all of our property. And so the intention is that we were going to spend some time on Vancouver Island, living there, and then deciding where we might like to live permanently, like where to purchase. And we never got to that point. So we didn't have, a home that we needed to sell. Where we were renting, we were very coincidentally able to break the lease. That's kind of its own whole story, but we were able to break the lease without penalty because of a couple of coincidental violations that, I mean, really weren't that big of a deal, but kind of legally gave us the opportunity to break a lease without penalty. And our kiddos are pretty much launched. Our daughter still definitely, we have lots of contact with, but she's become extremely self-sufficient and she's adulting really well. So there wasn't as big a need for me to be in close physical proximity ongoing for her. And we're not yet at the stage where we have grandkids. So I wasn't feeling compelled to stay. And where, like, I don't have a job, I don't have anything that I'm compelled to be at a consistent or specific time, date, or place. And we don't, like I started off by saying, we don't have any property. So this runway was completely clear. There is no better time than right now. And combined with the fact that I'm currently 48 years old, and in really great physical health. So it's just a wonderful time to do all these things. So connecting that into why now as well is that my husband and I got together when I was 19, and so I'm 48 now. So we're getting very close to 30 years together. Um, but what that has also meant is that we started family really, really young. So I met him when I was 19, and we had our son when I was 22. And so I went right from home to university to being a mom. And so I never really had this period of time of kind of like adult differentiation or individuation when, people run off in their 20s and do silly things and 20s or 30s and do silly things and explore and experiment. I've had a lot of responsibility, like my entire adult life, combined with uh, when I was 18, my mom, who would have been 47 at the time, was diagnosed with terminal lung cancer. So from that age, like it was about 7 years altogether of off and on treatments and surgeries and chemotherapy and radiation. So our family lived, with cancer for 7 years, which is impressive and on one hand, and then also like really, really challenging. It was very, very formative period of my life and formed a lot of things. And that also means that she essentially was met with a terminal diagnosis at the age that I am now. And so she was thrust into menopause and was essentially dealing with death. And so I don't really have a lived template or a lived example of uh, somebody, a woman moving into, like, it's called cronehood. I don't love the word, but to move into, that next stage of life. So I don't have a model for that. And so that's been a part of this as well, is that, generationally, in terms of lineage, um that I'm really forging a totally a brand new path, something that was never modeled. I mean, my both my grandmothers are wonderful people, and they were on both sides of the family, like 50-year marriages, truly until death do us part. Like I've got a lot of longevity in that regard, but not a lot of I would say, individual trailblazing kinds of examples. So, there's a lot that's gone into this for me, and what is uh driving or motivating this pathway. Yeah, it's probably the best way to say that. So there's a lot. It's there's probably probably in my uh, one of my returns astrologically. And, when you look up all of these things in terms of your chart and whatnot, like it makes perfect sense that these things are all happening. In numerology, I'm in a 2 year, which is all about relationships and diplomacy and conflict moderation and not taking things personally and, all of those kinds of things. So, I mean, it all adds up to why I'm experiencing what I'm experiencing right now. But I really wanted to chronicle this. I mean, I think primarily for myself. I think it's a good exercise, and then also too, there is a connection to this in my human design. So I'll speak about that briefly. One of the things that I look at in someone's chart, it's kind of a primary way to determine how their business should be set up, and it's in something called circuitry. And so there are three main types of circuits: individual, tribal, and collective circuitry. And so I'm not going to give a whole tutorial, but what I will talk about is individual circuitry, because that's one of the things that's really driving this. So what do I have? I have 8 circuits, seven channels, 7 or 8, can't remember. Anyways, half of my circuitry is individual. And so the main driver, kind of the theme of individual circuitry, is freedom. And so that has to be a primary thing. So in terms of how we offer services with individual circuitry, it's very short term. It's kind of like drop in, drop out, kind of quick and dirty, get it done. Think retreats or short-term engagements or things like almost anything like well under 3 months is a good time frame for individual circuitry, because we're not bound to showing up at the same time over and over for a long period of time. So 50% of my circuitry is that. And the other aspect of individual circuitry is really that our role in the collective is to blaze our own path. It can look or have the appearance of being selfish, because truly we're following this internal impulse to do something essentially on our own that nobody else is really what we're drawn to do or driven to do isn't motivated by other people, in service to other people. It really is in service to what is emerging through us. So a really good example of this would be like Taylor Swift. So she's taken her life, she's living her life fully. She's taking heartbreak and she's writing songs about that heartbreak. It's all about her. And then she sings those songs and it transforms millions of people, right? So you can, I use that illustration so that you can see how important a role individual circuitry plays in the world. It's just when you have a lot of conditioning, which we all do around it, it can feel very selfish. And so this is a part of my own devotion is to really live this out and to explore and experiment and live my life fully. And then that's what I teach from. And so there's no agenda to this. I'm just simply sharing my experience and I'll take you all along for the ride. I'll share my experience. And then this is also what I'll teach from because as a 3-5 in human design, the 3 is the great life experimenter, and then the 5 is the teacher, the visionary teacher. And so anything that I teach, it's from lived experience. This is not conjecture or theory or anything. It is all grounded in reality and also the most efficient way of doing things. So my whole role on the planet is to explore, experiment, make all of the mistakes, run it through my own system, refine it, come up with, my analysis of, well, I would do this and I would avoid that. This is how I think you should do it. And then that's what I teach from. And so this is me living out my design and following this impulse within me to travel and to follow this initiatic path and to live my dharma, to live my fullest expression is what this is. And so, I mean, how that looks at the end of the day in terms of monetization, I'm not even 100% sure yet. I just know that this is the path to it right now. And or monetization meaning how this is actually going to roll into my business, not 100% sure. But sharing at this level. And the other aspect of it was that I really wanted to be honest about what this path looks like because it can sound really romantic, like taking off and traveling around the world. And so that I think is probably what I want to close with this video is to give you some actual nitty gritty of what this has looked like and what it has taken to get to this point. Because it hasn't been smooth, let me tell you. Um, so so the biggest thing was to initiate separation with my husband 3 months ago. Then there's navigating how that affects our kids, right? Having those conversations, which is not easy, and we're still navigating those kinds of things. So I also want to be really respectful of telling other people's story as well and how, assuming how it does or does not affect other people. People we care about, and of course our families care as well. And so that's been part of it. And then determining that I did like initiating, like wanting to move out of the apartment, like having to coordinate different living arrangements. And so how this ended up rolling out for me was thinking, like starting to look at, so we were living in Parksville on Vancouver Island, and I quite love it. So let me just say that I really loved it there. A good little community developing with the gym and like, so it's kind of an idyllic spot. It's really beautiful. Um, and so I started looking around for a place there. And then I thought, okay, well, I know that I want to travel. And I mean, I had it in my head that I wanted to travel in the coldest months. But then that would have meant I would need a place and then I would need to either sublet or rent it out or pay two places if I was going to be traveling. And I thought, well, maybe I don't need to do that. Maybe this is the time that I can actually just leave and the runway cleared, and I already talked about why the runway is clear and why this is a perfect time. So that was how that kind of came about. So then there was the matter of, breaking the lease, and we had the timing to do that. Our very coincidentally, and actually this is part of breaking the lease, we were able to basically get a custom date to move out. So we officially had the apartment until the 15th of this month, so 2 days ago. And so then that also meant, my husband Jason needed to find a place on his own for a period of time too. And so he's looking at he got himself set up in a short-term rental, and he's planning on traveling starting in November as well. So he's only going to be there for another is that 4 months? I don't know what the math is. But anyway, so we're having to logistically coordinate things. And then there is the matter of, okay, what do we do with all of our belongings? So we thought about selling everything, right? But then that was just starting to be like a logistical nightmare, basically, to start to trying to coordinate selling that while I'm simultaneously preparing to leave for an extended period of time. So it didn't seem feasible. And so we were able to find like a really ideal arrangement for long-term storage. And so then it was a matter of packing and moving our entire apartment, just the two of us. And so we did that last week. So it was pretty much from Tuesday all the way through Saturday when I left. My flight ended up being at 8 o'clock in the evening. So it was Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Is that five? Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. 5 days, like of 12-hour days of moving and cleaning everything. So it was huge. It was a lot to get our apartment squared away and all of our belongings squared away. The benefit in that is that it's very efficient living. Like when we moved from Saskatchewan, we downsized and got rid of all excess stuff. Like so that was a load off of our shoulders. Anyways, I still had stuff from my dad's estate from when he passed. I still had stuff from my gym that was in there. So I mean, there's just, how houses get, like just massive black holes of accumulation. So we had that stage, and then we moved from Nanaimo to Parksville when our daughter moved out. So moved her things along, and then another move. So it's been cleaning and purging and downsizing for progressively for 3 years. So I mean that's certainly the upside. So we've got everything in storage in a 10 by 20 unit in Parksville. So that was a lot of work. And then I hopped on a plane to Costa Rica. And why Costa Rica? Because I was originally aiming for Peru. So this concept of a year-long initiatic path, of really being able to be with myself and develop myself and really connect to who I am as a sovereign individual, not as all of the roles in my life of, wife and mother primarily. Um, so I was planning on starting in Peru because my intention is to travel around to as many sacred sites or places of spiritual significance as I can in the year. And maybe I'll go into that in another video, like where that all came from and why I wanted to do that, because this has been something that, I received as a download many years ago. I think that's going to be a whole other story, but that was what I wanted to do. I had been drawn to starting in Peru, and in June for Father's Day, a WestJet sale kind of floated by, and the furthest south that WestJet goes is Costa Rica, Liberia specifically, not San Jose. And I had been to Costa Rica once before 10 years ago and always wanted to go back, like really wanted to live here for a period of time. Because when we came down, we were actually looking to buy property down here initially. And that didn't pan out. Again, story for another day. But I always wanted to come back here. And so lo and behold, there's cheap flights to Costa Rica. So I thought, well, what the heck? Let's maybe use Costa Rica as a landing pad. And so did that. And so I've gotten myself down here, got into an Airbnb. Like this is all intended to be allowing life to guide me through this. And so I've got a rough plan, but I'm not attached to it because I really want to be in service to my intuition and to this initiatic path. And that doesn't come from the mind, right? So it's a whole other level of devotion and surrender in this process. And so I had the intuition to be here for about 4 to 6 weeks to kind of use Costa Rica as a bit of a launch pad. And just the way it turned out, it looks like I will be leaving on August 12th. So, I mean, kind of a long story as to how that came about, but it's coordinated that way. And so I've started looking at places in Peru, and I definitely want to see Machu Picchu. So I think that'll happen either the end of August or maybe beginning of September once I've acclimatized or acclimated to the region, to the altitude and that kind of thing. Um, so that's going to be what's up next. And so here, I've been in Costa Rica now for 5 days. I started in a really cute little hotel so I landed in Liberia and then I went pretty much directly west to the coast, Playa Hermosa at a hotel, just so that I could kind of get there for a couple of nights, get my bearings, and then really investigate some places that I wanted to stay. And I came across this little place, which is a little bit further south. If anybody knows Costa Rica, I'm still north of Tamarindo, at I already said it, Playa Portuero. And so the place that I'm staying is sort of a shared accommodation kind of thing. So I've got a big master suite, balcony, ensuite bathroom, the whole thing. It's got a shared kitchen and living space. So I mean, I've had to figure out like how to get around, where to get my groceries, where like all the things are. Like I'm learning how to use the local transportation, the buses, the colectivos, all of that kind of thing. And the lady who owns this place, she is wonderful, lovely. She took me all around this morning to get me, sorted and figured out, show me the best grocery stores and the natural supplement stores and um where there's potentially some gyms. So I checked out a couple of gyms. So I finally found myself a gym and it's brand new. It's in walking distance because that's the main thing for me. I had a walking lifestyle in Parksville. I love it. So I really wanted this to be walking lifestyle as well. And so I found myself a gym today. So that's why I am sweaty and greasy and completely unpolished, is because I finally got to work out. And that was so grounding for me because it's been close to 2 weeks. 2 weeks ago, Friday would have been my last workout. And then I don't typically work out on the weekend. And then because we were doing all of the moving, I didn't work out that whole week. And then I was traveling and so on and so forth. So, but just getting acclimated to this, like it's not smooth and it's not resort living, right? And that was intentional. Like I for sure could live in a resort, but that's not real. It's sort of like taking your country and plopping, a little oasis of your country in another country. So it doesn't like it's lovely, but it's not real. It's not the real, in my opinion, it's not the real experience and the reason I came here. Um, but so I mean, part of this of like identity deconstruction is to not be around anything familiar, right? So culturally, like I mean, even the nervous system of different places is completely different. Like the Costa Rican nervous system is totally different than the North American nervous system. The sounds and harmonics and like the birds and the howler monkeys all night long. Oh my God. It took me 5 days to be like, why are people revving motorcycles in the middle of the night? It's monkeys. And they were sleeping close by last night. So the sounds are different, the frequency is different, the pace is different, the heat, Lord, the heat. So, this is supposedly rainy season, and so I wanted to come to the area that wasn't as rainy, and which is the Northwest, the Guanacaste province, which is where I am. And there has been no rain whatsoever, but it is hot as balls and humid. So it's been like low 30s the entire time that I've been here. And I mean, like, I grew up in Saskatchewan. I grew up on bald prairie heat and playing ball tournaments all summer long. So, and then being at the lake, like I was a lake baby. So I grew up in heat, but dude, since living on Vancouver Island, where it like ranges between 5 and 20 degrees for the vast majority of the year, and that's Celsius, like I've got a very small window of tolerance anymore. Like as soon as I went, if I go home to Saskatchewan, I'm frozen. Or and then here, like it has been like crazy hot. Like I've got the air conditioning running 24/7. Um, I'm sticky, I'm sweaty, I'm smelly, and so like what it feels like is like a detox, like a sauna detox. And so I'm going to be detoxing the North American nervous system for a month and not speaking the language. I mean, a lot of people speak English and are very willing to speak English. But there's definitely places when you go into smaller, people who are used to dealing with tourists mostly speak English. But then all of the very local places, there was no Inglés at the gym today. And so she said something, she said even like, she was trying to say now to me, no idea what she was saying. So I had to bust out my translate and and then show her what I was saying. So I mean, there's that. There's a level of unfamiliarity that is very jarring to your bearings, right? I think this is what people refer to as culture shock or things like that. So it can be very, very jarring. Like initially at the hotel, it was very lovely because I mean, you're still being served really well and the food is all being prepared for you, yummy, yummy, yummy. And then here I've got to figure out the supermarkets and I mean, they don't package and sell meat the same way, so trying to figure that out and, just where to get things and it's just not easy. It's not easy. And so this has not been romantic by any stretch. And I had myself a little bit of a meltdown a couple nights ago where I was just like, and I really want to preface this by saying there was probably going to be a fair amount of swearing in my content because that's just how I talk. So if you've got little ones, you know, do what you need to do about that, but then be aware that I will drop some certain choice words along here. But I don't even know what I was about to say about that. But like probably I was about to say I like couldn't fucking find anything, So just that kind of thing. Like it was hard to get myself fed in the first couple of days, so just those kinds of things where it's not easy, it's chaotic, it's hot, it's unfamiliar. Um, I don't know where, I don't know where anything is. I hadn't been working out. My sleep was all wonked, like just, and it was really an intense couple of days, because my flight initially my itinerary was from 8 o'clock at night to noon the next day. So I was flying all night long, which I mean, it's back to back to back and so good that way, but not a good sleep. So then and then, and then the roads in Costa Rica are like twisty, turny, and I tend to get a little car sick in that. So just getting around and getting to the hotel and it's hot and how many times have I said that it's hot? So yeah, the heat, the heat is getting to me a little bit. Um, so yeah, it's been challenging and it's breaking me down in the best of ways. It's what I really need at this stage of my life, to strip away everything that is autopilot, honestly, really, and to walk an initiatic path to really find out what's in there, what's under there, what the barriers and blocks are, and then to also build from a really beautiful, sovereign place so that home and security is here and not out there in any kind of way. And so I know that this is only going to help me in in who I am and in the service to the world that I am intended to bring. Yeah. So, that's probably, I have no idea how long I was talking for. I sat down with the intention of let's go 15 to 20 minutes. I'm gonna bet it's more like 40 minutes, but I'll check that when I'm finished. Um, but yeah, I'm not planning on editing anything. Um, the whole thing is going to be unpolished and raw and real. And the name of the series came through as The Truth Files. I'm sure I'll have a better idea of why that is, and I intend to really share what I'm learning and excavating and understanding even within myself through this process, because I know I am not the only late 40s female who is reevaluating her life and what she wants to do in it. So if this can be of help and service to other people who, and women in particular who are going through this change, I know for sure I will be talking about that at some point because perimenopause has been a thing, y'all. It has been a thing. And I honestly I don't look at it as a bad thing, but it is intense. It's its own initiation. And I don't think we've got a good handle on it yet. And not even all the medical people who are banging the medical drum on it. But I don't want to get too deep into that. But this is definitely opportunity at this stage of life to really reevaluate some things and deconstruct and reconstruct some things. And I do believe that many symptoms of perimenopause can be alleviated when we do the hard things. It's not just about a lack of chemicals in our body. It is a call to really change some shit up that makes a big difference in our bodies and our systems when we actually listen to it. And when we resist it is when we don't feel so good. So, more on that for another day. But I wanted to let me just check in with myself to see if I mentioned all of the things. I hope I gave you a little bit of background and context as to who I am and how I got here. I hope that I've given a very honest accounting at what this process has been like to get to this point, because a lot of times I run into people and they're just gobsmacked by the life I live. The people that I met at the gym and even my lovely host, I went with her this morning to get groceries, and almost anybody is like, "Oh, really? You can work whenever you want and, wherever you want." And oh my God, that's the dream. And, I get that's the general reaction to how I live my life. But to get to this point and to set my life up like this is completely unconventional. And the amount of identity dismantling and belief system dismantling and conditioning, deconditioning that has to happen to get to this place is a fuck ton. And that's the simple thing, but it is the hardest thing. And so I plan to, be really honest about how challenging this is to get to what looks like paradise. So that's it for today. It's past 4:30 now. The hot water is on. So I'm gonna have myself a shower because I'm about the funkiest I have ever been in many, many moons since playing baseball tournaments in July in Saskatchewan on the Bald Prairie. So I cannot wait for a shower. And whenever you're catching this, thank you for being here. Thanks for listening. And if you've got comments or encouragement or anything like that or questions, I'd love to hear that. So drop them below. And otherwise, wishing you well on your own journey there. Ta-ta.